we're going to, for the format for this, we're going to change it slightly from what we'd originally planned. Having spoken to John and Yanni, what Thijs has done, he's done some preparation, and he's going to answer a number of questions that I'm going to ask initially that will be directed to John, which John has prepared answers for, which Thijs will cover. And then after that, we will be bringing in Rob and Corien and going into a lot more detail on the history of the 480 project. So, without further ado, Thijs, you ready? Yes. Okay, so Thijs, what was John working on before the 480 project?
So, before the 480 project, John was also working at Volvo. And he was making the 300 series. He was making the model year 83. He was working on a new design of the interior, the dashboard, seats, and the rear couch.
Very good. And how did John become involved with the 480 project?
So, Volvo Sweden gave the permission to designing and developing the new G13 and G15 series on John's own initiative. With Rob Koch knowing it, they started in Helmond designing and building a one-to-one scale model of the 480.
Excellent. And what are the three features of the 480 that 40 years on John likes the most?
The top three things that John likes about the 480 is that the car is balanced in its proportions. Maybe if there's someone who can grab me a brochure on the inside, there's a few things I want to point out. Can someone grab me a brochure? It's on the table there. So John said he thinks that the car is really balanced in terms of how it's proportioned. One more thing which is not on paper, and it's something that John told me personally, which I think is really fascinating. I'm going to try to find a picture to show you guys. Try to show you guys. Let's see how this works. So, I have a picture here you see right now. It's the rear of the car. One of the most interesting things that John told me about the car, that he designed the area which is just below the rear lights. Try to see if I can point it up. So this area, which is just above the bumper, we all know it kind of curves inwards, right? So if you have the rear lights and it curves inwards and then you have the bumper. Does that make sense to you guys? So why is that? John designed it that way because making the curve under the rear lights curve inwards, it creates a shadow, and that shadow means the rear lights get emphasized more and there's more you can see the rear lights much better. It's really, yeah, they stand out a lot more. Then you can also see what color can do to a car. So another fun story that John told me when I visited John a few weeks ago. John, at the introduction of the 480 in March '86 in Geneva, John really liked certain colors of the 480. And then John visited the convention. And what did John see on the convention center? There was a white 480. And John said, why is it a white 480? That's not the best color to highlight the nice body lines and the curves of the car. So that was a big bummer that the car was white at the convention center. Two more features that John really likes. He says so if you have the windscreen, that is the A pillar. So the B pillar is curved forwards on the 480. That's something really unique, not a lot of cars have. And one more thing that John wrote down that's really interesting, the cool feature of the 480 is the two separate rear seats in the back of the car. The two separate rear seats emphasize that it's a four-person car. I'm gonna share another fun thing with you guys that's not written down. I once asked John per email, because I have difficulties explaining what is the body style of a 480. Is it a coupe? Is it a hatchback? What is it? And John, you said to me it's a sporty free-time vehicle. More or less.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And what did John do after the 480 project?
interestingly enough, John, you stopped working for Volvo before the launch of the 480. You stopped working in 84 or 85. And then John went on to work for DAF. And he went on to design and develop the new DAF 95 truck, which also became the truck of the year. And it's a highly popular, one of the best trucks ever designed and built. So yeah, the DAF 95 truck is what John started on in 84, so before the launch of the 480.
Excellent. And what is John doing now?
Currently, John
Sitting here.
Currently, John is enjoying his company, I hope, and currently John is retired after a long and successful career, I think we can say.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, John. So, let's go in now and bring in Corien and Rob. And I'm going to ask the first question of Corien, and then I will bring in Rob. So, Corien, what were you working on before the 480 project?
Okay. So at Volvo they did a research that about the women influence on the purchasing of a car, and then the management thought it would be good to have someone specialized in color, upholstery and trim, and it should be a woman. And then Rob called the Design Academy, where I just finished, and as such I fell with my nose in the butter in the Galaxy project. Right, that was the 440 and the 460 and the 480, and yeah, that's actually how I.
Right. So from qualifying in design school, it was effectively your first job.
Exactly.
Amazing. Yeah.
And
very-
almost my last job.
Excellent. Thank you, Corien. So Rob, what were you working on before the 480?
For the 480 on the guiding John with the updates of the 430,
Yeah.
460. Then we had a four-door version with the trunk.
Yes.
The normal evolution you can have with a car, because it became more and more successful after the original direction with a DAF connection had given up that the car should have a variomatic. In Sweden they said we will try or want to try the version with a normal gearbox, and there was some objection from the former DAF organization because many of the technicians were the same and became from Volvo, from DAF Volvo technici. And that was so successful that there came a question from Volvo Sweden if we could make for 300 series with a 2-liter engine from the big Volvo 240. And our product planners and also the technicians said, no, we can't do that. The engine is too big for the car. But in the product planning club of Volvo Göteborg was a man, Björn Holte. He did never accept no for an answer. So, as a big surprise, a Volvo looking like a 460 showed up in Helmond. The motor, had the opening for the engine bay showed immediately that there was a 2-liter Volvo 4-cylinder 2-liter engine in the car. And that meant that the car, from being a big DAF with a variomatic transmission and only 3 doors, in the meantime had grown to a full-size car with the biggest engine from the Volvo series. And that made the number of cars that could be sold so much that a couple of years later Volvo had 1 million of the 300 series cars, started with what John did and ended up with what we as a total organization could provide by the push of the Swedish Volvo department.
Yeah, so very, very successful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how did you then get involved with the 480, Rob?
We got a certain time the message from Sweden that they wanted to go to a front-wheel drive car that was to be backed technically by Renault and by Volvo Holland. And it started with a presentation of 4 model prototypes, scale models first, then full size. And John, I think, has opened the first step to a future for Volvo Car BV in Holland by choosing his design and basing it on the P1800. And all the others, Jan Wilsgaard had 2 Malmgren brothers, they had their own ideas. He had asked the Bertone and the Cogiola Italian groups to design, so it was 4 proposals to 1. For us, the history, but also the future of the car BV was depending on enough push from John's idea, and many discussions went, luckily not only with people of car BV, but with a very strong Pierre Hillenhammer, the boss of Volvo, and he in the end said, Rob, I think you and John are right. The car is technically the first Volvo with front-wheel drive. Why not make a combination with a car that looks completely different than all the flat metal bigger Volvos?
Yeah.
And that was just, I think, a happy coincidence that it all went like that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we'd not have been here with many enthusiasts on the 480, but there would not have been a Volvo Car BV.
No. It was vital for the future
It was
of Volvo
vital for the
Netherlands.
future of Volvo.
Yeah.
And it's because John came up with the first proposal based on the right history of the Volvo, the most sporty and styling-wise, the most liked Volvo.
Yeah, yeah, very good. Thank you, Rob. So, Corien, you mentioned as part of your introduction the important aspect of you bringing new ideas, appealing to a female audience, female buyers for the car. Talk to us more about that and how you wove that into the 480 project, please.
Okay, well, I think that the guys did it before I started to the color and the upholstery and trim, and I think it can be done by men as well, but it was important that there was someone focusing in that area, and that the team could use a woman as well. There's some diversity because we're all men, so that is how I looked upon it, and I didn't feel myself per se the representative of the female customer, more that there was focus on an area that was important. And actually men are as interested in color materials as women are. Women are probably even more technical oriented because they want, and the men are very emotional in their buying process, to be honest.
And what are the 3 features of the 480 that you like the most?
I like the overall shape. It's an iconic lifestyle product. Oh, pardon. The nod to the P1800, of course, the tradition and the history of Volvo, and that it continues. Also, furthermore, C30 later on. I like that continuation. Durability, not only of materials, but also its durability of vision.
Yep.
That's important. I think it is an haute couture iconic product, and that hasn't been changed in the years.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Corien. And Rob, same question for you. What are the 3 features of the 480 that you like the most?
The same, that it's timeless. If people see these cars on the road, there's still a big surprise for
Looks-
whoever sees the car.
Looks modern.
It looks modern, but it also looks stylish and romantic enough for people like you are enthusiasts to keep the life of this car going. And many cars fall by the roadside. This one, I think, because it's so timeless, can still have a long life ahead of it. Just and forget about from what year it is introduced, because it's timeless. That's I think, the big
Timeless but innovative.
innovative. Yes, yes, yes.
Still can stand the time.
Absolutely. It still looks incredibly different and modern, yes. And after the 480 project, Rob, what did you do? I know you went on to a number of things, but give us a few highlights.
We went to the 440 and the 460, and the 460 was my latest car, provided by my boss. I went out of the company in 1992 because Volvo car, BV as it was called, became another firm where the styling department was part of the engineering department, whereas in the rest of the car industry, styling moved higher up as a level in the total importance of a good working organization. And I wrote a report which was supported by all the members of my department to the Raad van Bestuur, the direction, and the boss said, "You are right, but the company of other directors have different views, and these different views were for me too much old duff. Therefore, I saw no future, and at that time I could go in what they called early pension. And I left. John always said, he went to DAF, I cannot wait so long for you to do other things, and I don't want to wait for your time of giving your chair to me. And I still think in that respect he left too early, because when I left, Peter van Kuylenburg took over. And Peter van Kuylenburg had a very interesting time, because in the days that he started, the Ford Motor Company was the partner of Volvo, and not Renault anymore. And the Ford Motor Company made he provided a background for Peter van Kuylenburg to travel worldwide and check what all the different Ford styling compartments over the world, what they were breeding on. So he had a very nice future, and I was happy to be able to go to do other things that I liked. And after 1992, I've been for 12 years a flight instructor, also here from Eindhoven.
Amazing.
And that was my first hobby. I've always done things that people don't have to work for but enjoy doing.
Yeah, very good, very good. Rob, thank you for that. Corien, obviously it was an early project for you. There's been many, many projects since then. Can you give us a summary of some of the other things you've worked on, please?
Yeah, but it's also the case with color and upholstery. It's all over all the cars that has been produced in the Netherlands, and of course in connection with the strategy in Sweden. So we traveled up and down that time in a little charter to see how we could cooperate as well. So we, of course, for 40, for 60, for 80, the all new C30, V40, V50, C70, the convertible that we developed together with Pininfarina in the Terrein. They did the design and we did the engineering. Interesting. And of course, all the way up to the XC40 is one of the last cars where I was, what I influenced, and I also, of course, worked on all the limited editions and too much to, and the concept cars, of course, like the 480 Cabrio, of course, the Axis. Almost forgot the Axis was also a very interesting project. The YCC, ECC, SCC, nou ja, goed. So both developments in the Netherlands and Sweden, and I was also involved in the design challenge at that time in the Netherlands.
Yeah. And what are you doing now?
Yeah. Okay, so after an impactful live event, I worked for 35 years for Volvo, so it was a hard decision, but I thought it was important to go back home and develop a private life as well. And I was homesick, to be honest, so I needed to go home with pain in my heart, and after that I was asked to develop a global color material center of excellence of Philips, translevel material innovation. Did that for a few years, and now I went back after my corporate life. I went back to school because that's the most important thing in your life, to keep on studying and be curious. Whatever happens, stay there. So now I'm trying to find out all about the handcrafting shoes. So design and handcrafting shoes, and that's actually kind of logical follow-up because it's a mini car. So I can still develop cars, but then in a mini size, it's about sustainability, it's about lifestyle, it's about material innovation. It has to walk.
Yeah.
It has to be comfortable. It has different markets, of course, and it has limited editions. So it's all the elements are in a compact version in a shoe. And often for concept cars, we put a shoe aside the proposals to make it more clear what we meant with that particular car, to show the lifestyle. So that's what I'm doing now, and I've been painting my entire life, so I'm painting as well. And you can find my shoes and my paintings on Instagram.
Great. Thank you, Corinne. And when did you last drive a 480?
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Time flies. I have no clue. Must have been. I remember something with an interview. I don't know.
Yeah. A long many years. What about you, Rob? Can you remember when you last drove a 480?
I've had, I think, 3 or 4 480s as a company car. I went to Wintersport several times with the 480, a silver one and a red one. And the thing that made it impossible to carry on with the 480 is because I got only one company car. And with that company car on a crowded parking place, I had problems with opening the long door so far. And on the parking places, they make it more difficult because other cars around you are also growing. So that was the only practical reason for me to. It hurt my heart to stop driving a 480 myself. And as a hobby car, that door problem doesn't exist. You can choose where you go in the 480, and if you don't want to go there because the doors are too long, there's most of the time, well, another car available. And that was not the case in my arrangement about company cars.
And what do you think the 480 is best remembered for, Rob?
When we were in Geneva, and in Geneva 1986, Giugiaro came to see me, and together, there are pictures of it, Giugiaro and myself at the back of the 480, and you can see him moving around, and he said, what I would never have dared to do is make a combination of steel, plastic, and this three materials, plastic, steel, and glass.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's your answer to that same question, Kareem? What do you think the 480 is best remembered for?
Well, because it's an iconic product, of course, as I said, the wink to the P1800, but also indeed the innovation. I'm very much from innovation. I love innovation. There was the rear window. The rear window was without frame, I think, right? But that is not my area. It's actually John's area. And then there was the lock was positioned in the B post. That was very innovative at that time. The positioning, sorry, John. The pop-ups, I love them. and the compact and the composite bonnet. That was, but they didn't continue with that, right? That was a story.
The engineering people proposed a composite bonnet for weight reasons, and at the same time, or around that time, we went to see the Amsterdam Motor Show, and there was a new BX Citroën with a plastic motor cover, bonnet. And you could see it was plastic because it had like these cups, these ornaments to make it stiff. And the people who walked around the motor show in Amsterdam, I saw several of them breaking parts out of the bonnet to see if it was plastic. So I told our engineers that we definitely did not want plastic if spectators start taking the car apart on the motor show. So they came up to a compromise. It's a plastic bonnet, but the shape of it looks like a metal bonnet. So you don't see the invitation to start
breaking pieces off.
Yeah. I have a question to you, Rob, because I heard an urban legend that this hood is now, which you said, the material that's now used, but isn't it now heavier than a steel variant?
No,
it was?
it's not heavier.
Okay, then it's just an urban legend.
No,
Just to debunk that.
it is plastic because we would not have done it otherwise, because when you develop a car you always go for the lightest variants that fill the demand. But in this case, the first fear was that it would be mishandled by spectators, and not as far as I can remember. No. All the people who have now 480 can maybe say if they have a metal bonnet or not.
Mine's metal.
Mine metal? Then it must have happened after I left and went flying.
I thought it was kind of the story that I thought it was the story of the bonnet was too heavy because it had to be strengthened by fiberglass or something like that, and also something with the supplier that the supplier was maybe something, and the supplier was involved in there. So I thought it was kind of story, but I don't know to spoil.
No problem. This is all very interesting. Corinne, you stayed on, you said for 35 years you were with Volvo Cars. During that time, how would you gauge the long-term impact of the 480? You mentioned the C30, and I remember as soon as I saw the C30, I immediately thought of the 480. So,
That's the idea.
yes, talk to us more about that and how that was influenced and developed, please.
Yeah, but that was the idea, that it was a follow-up from the P1800, 480, C30, and still that is also a very iconic edge. Isn't there also the rear window is
Yes.
also shaped after the window of the 480? The C30 is also 4-seater, right?
Yes.
Oh, I have to dig into my memory. But it is a kind of, it's even smaller than it's on the small platform, but it's an iconic, vivid,
Yes.
more vivid, less less compact and sporty. It's more vivid.
Yeah. So 40 years on, what's the one thing that you are most proud of in terms of your contribution to the 480?
A few things, but you are fishing for an answer, and I will show you some samples. It's the hand-painted leather interior, of course. I was fond of the carbon mill, we did it as well, and there was a moment that I almost got matte metallic on the exterior, but the photographers were frightened that that wouldn't give the right picture for sales. So that was one. I developed, remember the lacquer I developed, that was a self-healing dye, the strong lacquer, matte again, but okay, but the hand-painted leather was developed with a leather designer in my team at that time. We were, that was Wolf Cichirski. I found him somewhere in Germany. He was painting leather, and we developed together a pattern that could be cutted random, and then every interior would be a personal, your personal car, so unique per car.
Yeah.
But marketing actually didn't market it well. They didn't understand the concept. And so they only did one line in the brochures, like hand printed.
Printed, not painted. Yeah, they
Yeah,
used the wrong word.
Used the wrong word. And Wolf Cichirski, and special about this, because engineering is always very tough in everything should be the same, it has to be repeatable, and so it's logical. But in this case, they signed off that it was okay to have it all the time unique. So that was, I have samples here, I can show you, and that was special. And then also special was during the production, so Bridge of Ware kept the place for a while for our designer, so that he could do his job in production, hand painting the leather. And I have seen a car from Sylvia, it looks beautiful. I love it because it really gives the patina of what leather brings us, because it's not the leather with the printed grain, but it's the top leather, so
Yeah.
it's the good quality. And then you get a beautiful life of the leather. I will show you.
Yes.